want to give a quick review on the Michael Jackson movie. So the movie Michael, titled just strictly Michael, you know, a lot of people had things to say about, why wasn't Randy in it? Why wasn't Janet Jackson in it or Rebe Jackson in it? Well, they opted out of being in the film, so they couldn't put them in the film without being in risk to be sued. So avoiding a lawsuit, they just scrapped them from being in the movie altogether. But my take on the movie, I went to go see it last night with my wife. It was extremely enjoyable. I believe it was a great film, but I want to dig into why, and I want to talk about some of the talking points of the critics that I've heard as of late. So some of the talking points, I want to start off with what the critics are saying before I say what I really loved about the film. A lot of the critics are saying that it's enjoyable if you're a fan as far as the music, the visuals, the way it's shot, and things of that nature, but it falls short and is a bit weak when it comes to its storytelling abilities. So you have to factor in what kind of movie that you're watching, and I don't think critics really understood that, or they have a certain level of understanding or what they would want it to be about in the perception. And then we have to take into account these people. A lot of these people just don't like Michael Jackson anyway. But here's the thing. They're saying the story is weak and it really doesn't give you anything that we already knew, everything that we've seen in the movie. But when you really look at it, it's been so long since Michael Jackson died in 2009. And even before that, we have to understand that this is a person that his career spans from the age of 10 all the way up to the age of 50. So that's a lot of ground to cover. This is not like the old movie, The American Dream, where it was 10 hours of content because it was broken up into parts. This is one movie. The runtime is 2 hours and 7 minutes. So they have to kind of squeeze a lot in within that short amount of time. And if you didn't know, there were a lot of reshoots because I believe the movie was originally over 3 hours long, but they had to take out some of the allegation stuff because it was written in a clause that they couldn't mention the accusers. You couldn't put that in a movie, a book, anything. They just could not be talked about, or you would be risking a lawsuit. So that kind of threw a monkey wrench in the whole situation. So they had to scrap that whole third act of the movie addressing those allegations. So they had to reinvent the movie. So the movie became more of a inspirational. Mind you, I said inspirational. And it was about bringing Michael Jackson back to life for 2 hours, allowing us who love Michael Jackson to relive his brilliance through motion picture, and also for those that didn't know anything about Michael Jackson to get to know him. It's a lot of young people that didn't grow up on Michael Jackson like we did, and so they're getting introduced to him through this film, and I think it does it very well. Of course, there are things that are left out. Of course, there are certain little nitpicks that only super fans would understand and see. But as I was saying, getting back to what they said about the story. So what I gathered from it is this. I actually learned things that I didn't know. As you all know, Michael Jackson went through a bunch of surgeries. Surgeries on his nose and things of that nature. But why he did it was not really shown. It was talked about because, his father used to rag on him, call him Big Nose and things of that nature. And that was also in the movie. But where he got this image from is the Neverland book and this Peter Pan book. It was a part in the movie where Michael Jackson touched the nose of Peter Pan, signifying that that's the nose he wanted. That's how he wanted to look. And it was just a lot of little things. There was a scene in there where Joe Jackson told all of the brothers to reach out towards the wall, and he went on to say, you know, from this point on, we're all in unison. We're in sync. You're not just moving as individuals, we're moving as one entity. I thought that was very brilliant in the thinking, and it kind of explains why they were so good, you know, as a group as well. Obviously, we always known Michael Jackson to be the standout of the group, and he's a superstar. Obviously, he's a prodigy, and if we're being realistic, and it's a story telling how he was robbed of his childhood, and it was a particular part where his mother Catherine was talking to him and said, you know, don't you want to make friends? And he said, yeah, I do, but they all look at me like this person, this performer, this entertainer. They're not looking at me like I'm their friend. They want to do is take pictures. All they want to do is talk about me as a performer, a singer, a dancer, and it's not authentic, which further pushed him into isolation. And I've never thought of it in that light. I always thought like, okay, he doesn't have friends because he is too busy rehearsing and performing and traveling and all of these things. But I didn't think that when he did get a chance to become a true kid and have other kid friends, Michael Jackson immediately saw them for who they were. And that said a lot to me. For him to, you know, be able to pick up on that purity and know that it was inauthentic, so he didn't want it. So of course it goes into him having all of these friends, which he referred to as animals, as he told his mother specifically, these are not my pets, these are my friends. And he meant that. And then so moving along, people are saying, you know, it's nothing that we didn't know. And you have also things like vitiligo. When Michael Jackson died in the autopsy proved that he did indeed have vitiligo, but it was showing his struggles with vitiligo throughout the movie. I remember at least twice that it was spoke about and shown. We've never seen that in a movie. I don't believe. Even if they did in the Flex Washington movie or the other movie that was played by, I think, a London, England guy, those movies don't even count to me, if I'm being completely honest. This is a motion picture. Will be seen worldwide. So I'm just going to go with this. This is the first time that we've been shown him with the vitiligo in a movie, right? And it's about a superstar wanting to break away. It's about a performer, a very good performer, wanting to break away and become his own entity, become his own thing. He felt like he was being held back by his brothers. And if you watch certain tours like the Victory Tour or the Destiny Tour, you can see how Michael Jackson just stands out above them. It's not even close. You will hear them sing and then he'll come right after them and it'll be night and day. And you're just like, oh my God, like, what am I listening to? Michael Jackson has one of the most unique voices ever, but from two different generations. When he was a kid, his voice was very, very unique and powerful. When he was an adult, his voice was very, very unique. The sound just, you never heard it before. Some of the ways he can be versatile in his vocals, we've never heard that before. So moving along, it's definitely a movie because we're talking about storyline. They're saying it doesn't have a storyline. He's looking at the TV. He's studying James Brown, William Chaplin, Fred Astaire. He's looking at these guys, and it's not really talking about it, but it's giving you the hint. I picked up on it that he was under the tutelage of some of these guys, and some of the best performers. I don't care if you're a fighter or a performer. You've studied the past greats, and you've compiled them all into who you are. You've made it your own, and you've elevated it and gave it your own twist, your own style, and just kind of fused it with who you already were. And that's pure greatness. So we have to take into account, this is a story about how his father definitely is responsible for them being the performers that they were. But he also was using them and abusive of them. He was using Michael Jackson all the way up until Michael Jackson died. A lot of people don't know that. After Michael Jackson died, Joe Jackson gave a speech. And in the speech, he plugged his record label, his artists. He did not care. It was all about getting the money, progressing financially, through stardom, through all of these things. That's what it was mainly about for him, because he was a guy who came from working at the steel mill. He never wanted to go back to that. And I understand that. I can identify where he comes from, because I was a person that worked hard labor for many years. So I know that feeling, when you came home. And it was a scene where Joe Jackson came home from work and he just stopped at the front door, put his head down, and just gasped inside, because that's what it does. It takes so much from you. So I could relate to him in that point, but I believe he became drunk with the love drunk with the thought of becoming rich and famous through his kids, living through Michael Jackson and his kids vicariously, because Joe Jackson was a performer of his own that never made it. So, and that often happens a lot with fathers and their kids whether it's sports or entertainment. So what I would say about this, and it shows the human side of Michael Jackson and the kid that never went away because he never had a childhood. Even when they were older, he wanted to play Twister and all types of games with his brother. It showed it in the movie. And they didn't want to do that. They were more interested in girls and things of that nature. Michael Jackson was more interested in just becoming the greatest of all time and becoming a better performer and things of that nature, and just having fun and still wanting to be a kid and still very childlike. In the Bible, it says, be more like a child. And now that I said that, you got to think about how giving Michael Jackson was. A lot of people want to put a lot of attention on the false allegations. And I'll say false allegations because they were never proven. Over the course of 17 years, the federal government tried to bring him down, but they couldn't. So when you look at how giving he was, he's given away hundreds of millions of dollars. As much as concerts that he went and performed at, he went to children's hospitals and gave to them and nurtured them and went into every room and showed love and compassion, things that he did not have to do. You understand what I'm saying? These were things that he was doing out of the kindness of his heart. This wasn't something that he was doing for an image. This is something he believed, and it's something that he preached all the time. It was something that he spoke of in his songs. It was things that he spoke of when you seen him. It was times that he was being recorded without knowing he was being recorded, and he would still speak in this manner. So the people that are saying, oh, they're pushing it, why did he have to go to so many children's hospitals in the movie? They're trying to paint a narrative. They're not painting a narrative. These things really happened. They really took place. And also this movie touched into the affirmations of Michael Jackson. If anybody knows anything about the law of attraction, so the law of attraction is based off imagination. If I would ask you, take a child and take an adult, who do you think would have the more stronger, vivid imagination? If you have any type of sense, you would say a child, which is a telltale sign that a person like Michael Jackson, who was the greatest to ever live, the greatest to ever do it, he broke barriers. He came up with so many things. He was the first person to do many things, ad-libs we've never heard of before him. And there's so many things that he did. He broke barriers in music videos. So a person that can imagine this much and imagine these things. And he would say these affirmations, I'm strong, I'm beautiful, I'm the greatest of all time. I will be the best performer, the best actor. I won't be known as just a boy band singer anymore. I'll be known as MJ. I'll be, he's just writing these things down and living by them. So what I'm saying is he dwells in that imagination, that childlike imagination. That's why he was so great, because he imagined, and in the movie he says it, if you can see it, you can do it. And these are things that they found in his journals that he's written down. People around him can attest to this. This is what type of person he was. And I thought that was a very, very good thing, because again, I've been a fan since I can remember, since a child. I've never known that. So don't tell us that it didn't give us anything we didn't know. That's a lie, because I didn't know that. I didn't know that he looked upon Peter Pan and that was the sort of the premise of his nose shape and things of that nature, because he really believed that, again, that childlike imagination. So just as we can't understand how a grown man can operate like this, we can't understand the greatness and the genius and how he was able to do all of these feats when it comes to entertainment. Why he's the greatest that ever did it. It's because of that imagination. It's power in that. When it says that we are made in the image of God, listen to that word, image, imagination. So if it was really there, it was really truth. That's what it was. And this video, opposes what the critics want, but it's about celebrating Michael Jackson. It's about bringing him back to life for 2 hours and showing the real side. It doesn't matter if it's just the positive side. He really did these things. You can't dispute that. He gave away hundreds of millions of dollars. He saved thousands of kids when they needed livers, when they needed kidneys. And these things are never widely publicized by the media, because the media has been trying to break Michael Jackson down ever since 1985, when he bought all of these catalogs, the Beatle catalog, the ATVs. He owned all of Sony, and then he went and sold half of it to Sony. So he still owned half of Sony. He owned thousands of songs. He owned every big star that you can think of. He owned their singles. He owned their hits. He went, Eminem was making fun of him in a song. I can't remember the name, but Michael Jackson waited in the cut and he went and bought that song. Then he went and bought Eminem's catalog. Why do you think Eminem doesn't tour? He doesn't think, because he doesn't even own his publishing. He don't own his catalog. Michael Jackson does. Michael Jackson was one of the most powerful people in entertainment business. And you didn't know this because that wasn't widely publicized by him nor anybody else. So you have to understand that they've been trying to get that catalog back from him for some time, all the way up until his death. They wanted to take that from him. So let's not sit here and say, oh, well, why would they put these allegations on him? Why would they do this? Why? I'll tell you why. Billions of dollars. That's why. Every artist that you can think of, every huge artist that you can think of, he owned their music. And he even gave some of the rights back to the artists that were in need. He just gave it back to them. Didn't make them buy it from him. He gave it back. In the movie, it depicts the Pepsi commercial where his head caught on fire and he suffered third-degree burns. In this situation, he's in the hospital. Obviously, Joe comes in, and the only thing he's worried about is if he's ever going to be able to perform again, even though he almost lost his life. I did not know that. Mind you, big fan. I didn't know he almost lost his life. I know it was very bad. I know he had to wear a wig, and I know that it caused him pain, and he had to get on pain medication that he didn't originally want to. I knew all those things, but I didn't know it was that severe, that he was just, one breath away from almost dying. He was in ICU. He almost died. But as he got up and got a little better, still inside the hospital, he's walking around the hospital talking to other people, talking to kids and sitting with them while he's still in pain, comforting them. This was just a part of his heart. This was just a part of his nature. And I know it's hard for us to fathom because a lot of us are pieces of shit. That's why it's hard to fathom. And again, it goes back to that childlike imagination. Not saying as he got older, he didn't get more mature in the fact of learning adults and learning things like that, because obviously he was a brilliant businessman if he was smart enough to buy Paul McCartney's catalog and then many other people's catalog. I mean, the catalog altogether was worth billions. That's what you got to understand. He bought the catalog. He bought the ATV, I believe, for 47 million, or it was the Beatles catalog for 47 million. That equates to 130 something million today. And again, Paul McCartney had a chance to buy it, and he had cold feet. So Michael Jackson just went on as a businessman and did that. So he was mature in that instance. So we got to note these things because he was a brilliant businessman and he was one of the most powerful men. Those business execs, all of these labels, these major companies, they did not want Michael Jackson in his power. They did not want a black man to have this much power. He's already breaking barriers. A black person has never been on MTV. He's the first black entertainer billionaire. They don't put that out there that much. And this was in the 80s. This was in the 80s. Remember, he started doing all this in 85, a year after the Victory Tour, a year after he said, I'm breaking away from my father, I'm breaking away from my brothers, and I'm doing my own thing creatively. I need to expand and continue to evolve. And that's what he did. And he gave us sounds that were just only unique to him. And visuals and just breaking the barriers everywhere you look. As I said, us as being made in the image of God. Imagination. Imagination is the power. That is the true thing that brings the law of attraction alive. So he was a deep believer in that. That was something I really didn't know that he did, that he sat and he said affirmations before he performed. He said affirmations when he wrote them down. He said affirmations while he's in the studio before he goes to record, speaking these things into existence. I thought that was very important. And also the movie brilliantly depicts the relationship between him and his father, how you can just see his countenance completely change as soon as his father walks into the room. These things, the nature, it was showing the human side of Michael Jackson as well as the creator side. Moving along to going deeper into Thriller, when he went to go to the Crips and Bloods and he actually got real Crips and Bloods to be a part of that video. People may have known that, they may have not. Again, you got to understand this man's career spans from the time he was 10 years old till he died when he was 50. So you got to think about it. Back then, at one point, it was only 6 billion people on the earth, 5 billion people on the earth. Today is 8 billion people on the earth. So those are saying, oh, we already knew all this. We already knew all of this. There are billions of people that didn't. And remember, Michael Jackson is worldwide. He's been in every country. His music is in every country. You can't say that for any other artist. You understand what I'm saying? You can't say that for any other artist. Listen to what I'm saying. That's how big Michael Jackson is. And so for the critics trying to slam this, trying to paint a narrative for people, and some people just jump on the bandwagon without realizing what they're watching just because they didn't get the movie that they wanted, which was a slanderous movie, a movie to make him look bad, because the same people like Rotten Tomatoes, the same people that gave it a 27% rating were the same people that gave the documentary Leaving Neverland 98% rating, because it was slamming Michael Jackson. It was people that were going with false accusations and lying, and these guys were actually caught in their lies. Nobody wants to really talk about that either. These guys lied under oath and got caught in their lies. So if there's lies being told, how can we believe anything that they're saying? These are the same people that said Michael Jackson never did anything to him and then waited till he died and then got with HBO to make a bunch of money to say that he did touch them and do inappropriate sexual acts with them. So people got to read between the lines and understand it is for what it is. Oh, why would Michael Jackson even want to have kids around him as friends and calling them friends and this, that, and the third? Again, we're talking about a person that is still childlike in nature. This is why he was so great at his craft, because his imagination was different. He didn't think about things the same way me or you may think of them. That's why he was able to be so great. And this movie focuses on the love of his craft, and it focuses on the humanity in Michael Jackson. But going back to that scene and Beat It, it really explained, his process, how he thought about the the dance moves and how we spoke about it. He said, we all need to be moving in unison, like a school of fish, the way he would, vocally depict things. It was just very brilliant. And it was good to see that process. So it's showing you the behind the scenes process of how he spoke, what he talked about amongst the dancers, how he was a perfectionist. It gave you these parts and points in the movie. So when we're talking about there's no story or we didn't learn anything different, a lot of things were just being reiterated, and there were some things to be learned. And some things that we knew, we still never seen it depicted on film. So it was great to see that. Just like even little things. I've always heard Michael Jackson said, I gotta like manifest this and allow God to give me these songs, because if I don't, he'll give them to Prince. They put that in the movie. You know what I mean? Just like little points like that, just to make you laugh. This movie was funny. This movie was emotional. It was some scenes from the young Michael. I believe his name is Valdi. He did a amazing job, by the way. Young Michael, the little kid that played young Michael, he did an amazing job, by the way. So it was scenes that was very touching and very emotional in that part. And even the part, the Pepsi commercial, seeing what happened to Michael Jackson and that whole scene, it was great. It was great. And yeah, towards the end, it was more like a concert. They wanted to kind of end it with a bang, and I understand that, and that was very enjoyable. This movie was about the celebration of Michael Jackson. It was about an inspirational film, because I felt inspired. I don't know how anybody that's an artist that creates that does not get inspired by this movie. Like, truly. And if you're not a creator, you may not understand it that well. But it's about having a good time. It was just about a good time. And again, bringing Michael Jackson back to life for 2 hours. Jafar Jackson did an amazing job depicting Michael Jackson in his mannerisms, in his speaking voice, in his dances, the moves, all of that. Like, great. I mean, Oscar worthy. The only reason they won't give him an Oscar is because it's Michael Jackson. Let's be honest. And the powers that be they hated how powerful Michael Jackson was. This is why they had him doing the This Is It tour. It was only supposed to be 10 shows, but yet they tacked on, I believe, 40 more. And it was either increased to 25 shows or 50 shows. I can't remember at the moment. But there you go, bro. And you can't say it didn't show that, it didn't show this. Yes, the brothers didn't have big parts, but the title is Michael. It's about Michael. So the nitpicks and all of that, like, it's crazy. And they're talking about doing a sequel. So, I mean, you got to take it for what it is. A lot of people feel like they whitewashed it. And, maybe they did to some extent. Yes, there were some issues with pacing. But you have to be considering that, again, from the age of 10 to 50. This is not like a lot of artists. A lot of artists weren't child stars all the way up into their adult life like that. at a high level like that. Every time they would leave their house, it'd be swarms of people. He had to dress in disguises in order to move around and be normal. At his concerts, thousands of people would faint. You can't fake that. It is a aura that you cannot explain. So don't sit here and act like you can explain why he did weird things, or why he lived the way he did, or why he was so childlike, and why this was that or this was that, because we can't understand the genius. Why do we think we can fully understand what we perceive as weird or off? You know, there has to be a balance somewhere. And Michael Jackson was so artistic that he believed that when he recreated himself, that he also had to recreate his image, like actually how he looked physically. Me, of course, I would never do anything that drastic. I can't judge him when he's the greatest to ever do it, because he's doing things that I wish I could do on such a high level. I mean, when you're touching that many people, you can't fake that. And that's what this movie was about. It was showing that. Sure, they could have peered in on other little nuances and different things like that. But again, the movie ended up getting butchered a little bit. They had to carve it up and make it to what it is. But I believe with what they had, they did an excellent job. I love the movie. I really want to go back and see it. As far as the review, that's what I got from it. Stop saying it had no story. Stop saying that we knew everything. And of course we would know a lot. I mean, look how long it's been. Look how much is on the internet. What are we talking about? You want them to tell us about stuff that we didn't know, right? So basically you want people to make up shit. Because how do we know that's true? The things that we do know is true is because they have been covered. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're going out to see the movie.